is not what you know, it's what you can prove.
You know how to cut to the core of me, Baxter. You're so wise. You're like a miniature Buddha, covered in hair.
I want to become a guru so girls will like me. Then I will like myself.
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules. Rule number 1. No touching of the hair or face.
Of course.
And that's it! Now let's do this!
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 136 of the Golf Guru Show. I'm your host, Jason Sutton, Director of Instruction at the beautiful Colleton River Club in Bluffton, South Carolina, where it is my mission to break down high performers in the teaching and coaching business, as well as all fields of study. Make sure that you download this episode and hit that purple subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes that will be coming your way. All I ask is that you share the podcast on social and with other coaches and players that might affect or benefit from this information. My guest this week is Fredrik Lindblom. Fredrik is a professional golfer from Sweden who has played on the PGA Tour Latin America, Canadian Tour, as well as the Forum Golf Tour. During COVID, Fredrik, along with his girlfriend, professional golfer Hannah Gregg, started a training aid company called Short Game Gains to help fund their professional golf careers and is now taking off. I'm a big fan of his training aids and his entrepreneurial spirit, so I had to have him on the show. Fredrik is also coaching some short game and is working with tour players and amateurs alike while he travels the world. Fredrik is a bright young professional, and I really admire his willingness to learn and get better, regardless of the task or goal, which is why this is such a great interview. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter at F_Lindblom and on the gram at Fredrik Lindblom, and also check out his website, shortgamegains.com, and then follow them on Instagram as well. So without further delay, here's my conversation with Fredrik Lindblom. Enjoy. Fredrik, welcome to the show, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I'm pumped to be here. I've listened to your podcast for a long time, and it's cool to be on it.
Thank you so much. So let's start with your backstory. I think you're gaining some fame through social media, and we have some mutual friends that we're going to discuss, obviously. But tell the listeners where you grew up, how you got into the game, and then describe your journey to where you are today.
Grew up in Sweden, Stockholm, Sweden. I started pretty late, and I had a pretty good amateur career, so I was offered a scholarship in Kentucky. I'd never been to the state, neither had my dad. I was actually practicing down in Spain, playing amateur events, and all of a sudden I got the opportunity to go play, and we were like, where's Kentucky, pretty much.
Probably still asking that.
Yeah, no doubt. It doesn't cost anything, so like, why don't you go, and if you don't like it, just bail, come home. I ended up in University of the Cumberlands. This is in the middle of nowhere. It's an hour between Lexington, Kentucky, and an hour north of Knoxville, Tennessee. Middle of nowhere. We had a Walmart. So I went into redneck paradise, and I come from Stockholm, which is a big city. But it was awesome because people were super friendly. It worked out. But after 2 years, I graduated to a school that's named Clayton State University, which is pretty much 10 minutes from downtown Atlanta. So it was a big city again, and it felt better. And I played really good my last season, was player of the year in my conference, and I give pro golf a go. Played a couple of years in Asia, was based in Dubai, then played a little bit in Europe, played a full schedule on Latin America. Then I qualified for the Canadian Tour, which ended up being Forum Tour.
Right.
Then kind of COVID hit. So that's kind of the story there. And during that time, I've been around great coaches. Some of them, you know, John Tattersall.
Yes.
He would be more, not only a coach, but like a mentor. He was everything for me. Literally, the way I found him when I come to Atlanta, I Googled, who's the best coach in Atlanta? And John showed up. And I still remember our first session. He tested my body, and he literally said, your body is crap. It's just horrible. And then I went in the studio, and I swung a driver at 120. And he's like, okay, there's potential here. Yeah, we had a good run. Thanks to him. Definitely thanks to him. I played really good in college, and I had the opportunity to play pro golf. So I wouldn't be here without John for sure. But I paid attention, no matter what John is telling you. I paid attention, and I learned a lot from really good coaches. And I kind of specialized in short game. So I do a lot of short game instruction. I worked with several pros on the highest level as long as some elite amateurs. And that's kind of where I feel really comfortable in my teaching. There's definitely better full swings instructors out there, and I bet there are better short game instructors out there too than me. But I'm very comfortable to be able to help good players in short game. And I'm starting to get a little bit better at putting. I have all the equipment now with the sensors and the putt view and so on. So I can probably learn a lot from you too. But that's kind of where I am. So I'm doing a little bit of everything. And luckily for me too, I met a beautiful girl that has a lot of followers on Instagram. So I'm like jumping on her back and getting a little clout on social. So it worked out.
Yeah, and sounds like she's playing well. You're talking about her before we got on. Hannah Gregg, you can give her a little plug. You have to get her on the podcast next for sure, because she's definitely a great player and then very popular on social.
Yeah, it's really cool because she never won in college. Her first year as a pro, kind of when we dated, she kind of struggled. And no one gets more hate than a pretty girl on Instagram. That's just how it is. Even if they say that, they want to turn pro. And this year, she's made cuts in European Tour events. She made it through first stage of Q School. So her development has just gone straight up to the roof. So it's really cool to see, even though there's tons of trolls out there, she obviously has tons of really good fans too. And it's cool to be a part of it. I help her with the chipping, but she has really good coaching staff around her too.
How did you guys meet? And then I didn't know if you were coaching her or you're just helping her a little bit with her short game.
So like many know out there, it's hard to coach your significant other, right?
Correct.
But she works a lot with a guy named Chris Mason. Fantastic coach, works with, I think, every LPGA Tour player, I think. Don't know how many girls he has. John has also helped Hannah quite a lot. And I do definitely help her with the short game. That's pretty much the extent. And then I trust Chris and other people around her to help her with the full swing. So I'm a small part of it.
So I'm going to read you a couple of notes that I got from John, right? So I told you I reached out to get a little intel on your guys' relationship. And it was good. As John always does, he over-delivered when I sent him just a quick text to like any stories or anything I could like ask him. It was pretty cool. So he went through your screen, basically. Poor thorax rotation, short lat length, strong grip, downswing thought was pure rotation, hit it off line more than anybody I've ever seen. Lots of speed, but couldn't find your golf ball when you first met.
100%. But that's why I had good short game.
There you go.
I had to, because I was hitting it off the world. So when he helped me find my golf ball, I was able to win on that level. It's helped me a lot.
Yeah, to follow it up, he said, has a massive heart, desire to improve, and fearless at finding ways to get to where you want to go. You can't teach that, whether it's in business or golf or life. My first follow-up question on that, and I've got plenty of other notes, is where do you think that came from? Was that your upbringing? Was that your parents? Did you have any other influence that basically gave you that drive?
I'm lucky to have the best parents in the world. Both of them have their own companies and doing really well. That was definitely inspiration. And then I think just literally, I'm all by myself over here. So if I don't do it, I have to move home. And it's cold back home, man. It's so cold.
Don't want to go back there.
No, the golf season is over. So exactly. It was always up to me. And I don't consider myself being a smart guy necessarily, but I will never give up. If it's something I have to figure out, I will figure out eventually, even if it takes time. So school was all right for me because I just studied. I did what I needed to do. And I think that's kind of where short game gains at the company I've done and all the teaching is coming from too. I won't stop until I hopefully figure it out. So I wish that happened to my golf swing too, but it's been a little rough lately. But on other parts, I've been very successful in the swing. I blame that on John.
Yeah, the coach always gets the blame, right, for the bad rounds. That's exactly right. So I'm used to that as well. So talk about your company. I think that's cool, like how it was formed. I know a little bit of backstory already, but love to hear what it is, Short Game Gains, and then kind of give us a little insight. And then I've got some business questions for you as well.
Yeah, Short Game Gains, we sell a bunch of practice aid related to short game, especially putting. And I've always been around short game instruction and some of the best players in the world. So I've always kind of paid attention to what they use and what kind of seems to work for them. And then when COVID hit, both Hannah and I had so much time on our hands that we normally didn't have because we were playing tournaments everywhere. And then I had to renew my P1 visa. So I'm on a professional athlete visa. When I came home to Sweden to renew it, COVID hit and all the embassies closed down. Literally everyone. So I was stuck. So we had all the time in the world, and we've always had these ideas because with people with bigger following, we were always promoting other companies' products. And one of my friends started a CBD business when CBD was the next big thing, right? A couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time we could really see the power of our influence or what we promoted. And in a couple of months, I think they sold for 50,000 from the promotion that we were doing. And we really liked the product too. And we figured, okay, maybe it's time for us to do something by ourselves, something that we really believe in. And that's something that we can help us fund our golf careers. Having two people in a relationship playing mini tour golf, pretty much, if you do a full season, that could be 60K, right?
Yeah, it's not cheap.
No, it's not cheap. That's how we kind of decided to give it a go. And we've always planned it for a long time. So I found manufacturers. I tried to improve already existing products on the market. We figured out kind of a few of our own products and we went from there. So we started out, I think, with 4 products. Now I think we have 9. What we really wanted to focus on was to also offer bundles. So instead of having to buy products from that website, and that website of stuff that you like, now we have certain kits that can help you with all kinds of your short game. So that's really cool. And we also have QR codes that go directly to the website. So if you buy a product, you will have practice plans, different drills from some of the better coaches and players in the world. So it's more like a workout or practice plan, not just purchasing a product.
Yeah, it's really smart because subscription-based stuff has been big. So it's smart to like combine those two, especially if you are teaching and you got good relationships with other coaches that might contribute. That's fantastic. As you started this business, like what have been some of the things you've learned about yourself and then also learned about the business? Obviously, I love sharing stories of success, but also maybe some of the failures that you've kind of run into or the roadblocks that you've run to kind of learn to get better.
Yeah, we almost went bankrupt in the beginning. We can start with kind of a failure that turned out to be okay.
Please.
Because we have a sales rep and he's done a really good job for some of the retail part of the business. And I think we wanted to get into that way too quick because right now we're a direct to consumer based brand and we're doing really well just by promoting on social, happy customers that tell their friends to go to our website. But we got offered to be in the PGA Tour Superstore fairly quickly by one of the sellers there. And the sales rep kind of told us, we need 500 of each product in the next 2 months. So all the money we had, we went and bought these products, right? And then the order got pushed up and pushed up. So money we thought we were going to get straight away so that we can reinvest in the company, that was all gone. Luckily, I was able to borrow some money literally from my parents just to kind of stay afloat. And luckily, we went through that inventory pretty quickly. But we really learned there that we don't know anything about how the business works. And that's when I kind of, before we jump into these big decisions, you need to know what you're doing. So I got to learn some kind of mentors and learn more about how this works. And nothing is promised until it's on paper, all that good stuff.
Yeah, contracts.
That's definitely something that could have broken us straight away. But then we also realized you got to be really good at what you're good at. So we have kind of pivoted and pushed back kind of the retail plans and focused mainly on direct to consumer. And the cool thing, and I think why we were fairly successful, is that literally in 2 years, we might have spent $1,000 or $2,000 in marketing. Everything except for that has been organically through Hannah's and myself, Instagram accounts, friends of ours that have bigger following, and also through the accounts that we have grown with Short Game Games. So it's been really cool. All the success has been pretty much organic. So we haven't paid for any of the marketing and so on at this point.
Yeah, it's so smart, right? I mean, use your reach, use other people. It's just like our teaching business. Word of mouth is free and it also travels much faster when you get somebody to post, like you said, like you were posting about other companies or other products. You get people that like your product, like myself. That's how we met, right? So I posted a laser that I bought from you guys, and I'm going to give love to whoever I like. If I like the product, I'm going to share it on social, and then it's definitely going to help. One of my follow-up questions is like, what advice would you give to small business owners, especially in the golfing space? I think it's difficult to start a new company. Sounds like start small, do what you do best, not try to get too big too fast. Anything else that you would share? I'm sure you get people say, I got this idea. What advice would you give those people?
It's all about how can you get the eyeballs in the most effective way. Obviously, you need to have a very good product first. If you have that, then you need to have people to see the product. But what we kind of have pivoted is that instead of paying a lot of other people to be the face of your brand, focus on your own kind of channels. So we have a content creator that we have hired now to help us produce really good content for our products to make those accounts bigger. Because the best thing you can do is that if you can grow your pages, your company's pages with really good content and something that relates to all type of players. So the content I produce mostly is for better players. So now we have an instructor in Arizona. His name is Spencer. He's out at Aguila. This guy is unbelievable, but he really is very relatable to the beginners or people that haven't gone too far in their golf development yet. So he says all the right things that they want to hear. This is how you can make more short putts, or this is where you struggle with this, so that people, sometimes it's a little bit intimidating if I start mentioning like club face alignment at the impact or loft at impact, and people are like, what the heck is he talking about? So he can say the same things in a much simpler way, but definitely start small, grow it, and then focus on, okay, how can I get enough eyeballs and not just spend all the money you have straight away? If you produce good content, then eventually people are going to want to see it. Just like your podcasts have grown a lot. It's just keep doing the right things, and it takes time. We had a head start because we already had a following. So if we wouldn't have that following, it would have taken twice as much time to get the eyeballs that we received. So it takes a lot of time, but if you have the will to do it, it can be achieved for sure.
Yeah, one of the notes that John sent me was you tried to get him on Instagram years ago, probably when you were in college, and he wouldn't listen to you. And I'm always on him too, because I'm always big on social media. And like, I'm telling you, like, if you want to do something, you got to get out there. So it was pretty funny that he put that in his notes.
John is definitely going to have to listen to this one because I'm going to give him some crap.
Yes,
he used to get on me like, why are you on your phone all the time? Why are you doing this? It's like, John, no one out there practice harder than I do. I'm hitting balls into a blade, man. And he knows that. You know, if I didn't perform, you know, you got to find something to give me shit for, right? He shows that. And I always told him, it's like, John, you need to do this. And he's like, I don't have time. I don't do this. And John is a very successful coach. So it's like for him to give up time to do this stuff, in the beginning, he thought it was stupid. But if he would have done it then, he would have had a little head start. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The ship hasn't sailed yet. John is known as one take Tarzan. It's unbelievable. If he wants to do a video, he would do it in the first take every time. I have learned so much of how to kind of act in front of the camera and not be too bland. Because in the beginning, you know, everyone are like, this is how you hit up, you know, like it's just too boring. You need a little bit of that Michael breathe.
Absolutely.
To get excited. And especially in front of the camera, you think that you're interested and you're acting out, but you're still boring. I promise you, I learned everything from John, just listening and watching what he's doing. So I'm giving him credit for that. He taught me what I'm doing today, but he was too late. But he's getting it.
You're exactly right. I learned from a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you've heard of him. If you haven't, then you need to like look him up. But he was kind of a social media mogul before it was super popular, right? And I started a YouTube show in like 2009 called Guru TV just because this guy. And I was looking at your and Hannah's YouTube channel and like the stuff you're doing now with playing golf and talking to the audience. And that's what everybody's after, right? They want to see good players. They want to get information. You're continuing the legacy, right? It's like IG wasn't out there when it was all Twitter, Facebook, YouTube was kind of new at that time. And then I was doing a blog and then kind of funneling everything through that. Now it's get on TikTok, right? Go dominate TikTok. That's kind of the new thing. Transitioning into that a little bit. The one funny one that he said something about a car called the Golden Pearl. He said, give him shit about his first love prior to Hannah. Tell me about this car.
Oh, it got me barely A to B. There was letters in between there sometimes, but man, this car gave me shit all the time, man. Obviously, John, he has this BMW deal. He's driving the nicest cars everywhere. And he looked down at me, you know what I mean? So one day, it's my goal in life to show up to John and have a nicer car than John. If I ever do that, I've made it. So that's my goal.
It's going to be tough.
It's going to be very tough, but one day I'm going to just roll up next to him and smile at him and he will know. But yeah, it was an old beat up car and I drove that until it literally went under. And luckily I had one of my really good friends, a family that's taking care of me pretty much like my American family. He had to pick me up on his anniversary with his wife one day when I broke down. And he literally took me the next day and bought me a car. No shit. He's like, I'm done with this. he's a very successful guy, but like, I'm never going to forget that gesture. I got a new car. It's incredible. The people that have helped me, it's unreal because I'm alone. All my family is back home in Sweden. And so I got a new Nissan Sentra now. So it's a little bit of an upgrade.
There you go, moving up.
It's rolling. Yeah.
He said it would cost more to park it at the airport than it was worth.
100%. Yeah. When I got my new car, my friend that bought me the car is like, do you want to sell this car to? I was like, man, sell? Don't we have to pay someone to take it from us? So he actually gave it to one of his employees, and they were, for some reason, very happy. But yeah, they don't know what they were into. That car is not nice.
That's fantastic. I did a BMW experience clinic with him several years ago. It's kind of how we met. And he took me and one of the other instructors on a ride and scared the shit out of us. The BMW on the highway, it was crazy. Like, he's literally a race car driver.
And he loves it.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, he loves cars. Let's dig into some teaching stuff, right? So tell me a little bit about transitioning from being a tour player to teaching is not easy. It definitely gives you some valuable experience, I think, as far as like you've been there, right? You've been in the biggest tournaments, you've played some tour events, and I think that's super valuable for a coach, but it doesn't necessarily make you a teacher, right? So tell us that transition, like how you got the information, who have you learned from as far as short game, who are your influences, and then we can dig into some philosophy and technique.
It all started pretty early. In Spain, I lived a year in Spain pretty much before I went to university, and all the pros that I was practicing there, they had been taught by Sevillano Ballesteros' brother. So they were super good at short game. So at an early age, they taught me pretty much all the fundamentals with no shaft. Like, no one was talking about this 15 years ago. Like, you shouldn't have any shaft lead. You need to expose the bounce. How can you hit a high with like a gap wedge instead of a 60-degree wedge? This is the leading edge. That's no good. Stuff like that no one talked about before. But I really developed a really good technique from them at the beginning. And the coach that was at the golf course there, his name was Christos. And all of those guys had great short game, and they pride themselves in their short game. The ball striking was all right, but we spent a day in the bunker just because some Spanish coach said you should spend a whole day in the bunker. And it was unreal because we figured out together as a group how to hit different shots. Like, this is how it seems to work when I do this. And then all of us like try to figure that out. So it started from there. Then, I mean, I'm a big golf nerd, but I was a big Peter Cowan fan. So I watched all the information that I could possibly learn from Pete Cowan. And Pete has the same philosophy about kind of leaning the shaft, what needs to happen to be able to use the bounce. I kind of really paid attention to what he was saying. And then John came into the picture. John is the same thing. Listened to a lot of good players. And John is the god of information. John gave me all the right information, and he gives me shit now because he says that I'm just stealing information, which absolutely I am.
We all do.
Right? I didn't come up with this, but I listened to a lot of great coaches figuring it out. And then it's a lot just trial and error, what works for me. And then I started small. I always had players come up to me because I've always had good short game and ask me, what do you do? Somehow, you know, in the beginning, I was pretty good at explaining what I was doing. And then I got better and better and better. And what makes me confident is that I tried everything. And I'm pretty good at hitting shots, so I know what I'm doing. I'm not saying what I'm doing is the absolute truth. I just know what works for me, right? And then I've been lucky to be around great players. I'm going now to hang out with Luke Donald for 2 days to shoot some videos. And I've always picked his brain, luckily, through my sponsorship with Mizuno. I've been around him, and he's pretty good.
Yeah, he's not bad. Decent out of the bunker, too.
Oh, my gosh. I'll tell you a story. Good. I was at the Honda with all the Mizuno players, and I did a piece with Luke, and we were at the short game area. We've done like videos all around. There's been pros everywhere. And he goes into the bunker, and I just watch him, and then I turn around. Every single pro there, the best players in the world, stop what they were doing and watch him hit bunker shot.
That's when you know you're good.
Yeah, and he would just 40-yard bunker shot, just clip it right next to the pin and just stop. And I was like, this is different. I've been around great players, testing what they've been doing, looking at, you know, numbers to achieve the same launch, attack angle, whatever numbers, where you hit it on the face to see kind of what works. And then I've always asked John, what do you think about this? And John will be stupid enough to give him his secrets. So that's how I learned.
Let's talk about how you would coach a player. It can be a tour player. Basic 30-yard wedge shot. Talk me through the language that you use. What do you like to see? Set up. How you describe to that player, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's what I'd like to see you do in this shot. What I call a baseline wedge shot.
So the first thing I'm looking at is obviously how he hits the ball. So how the ball comes off and the low point. So if he clips it nicely, when good players start struggling with their pitching, it's because they bottom out slightly behind the ball, in my opinion. You see the ball kind of rolls up, or it's the complete opposite, and they kind of lean it a little bit too much and the ball comes out too fast. So you either had the ball comes out too fast, or you bottom out a little bit behind and you have those balls that kind of just like float. They just launch too high and you don't have enough friction. So I try to figure out what their common miss is, and then I try to either move the low point or the depth of the arc to just get them to hit the ball more solid.
How do you do that? How do you manage the arc height?
Most often is how far the club swings from the body, right? So we don't want either player that extends the arc, so they start hitting either too much down on it, or their upper body and their pivot is moving too much down towards the golf ball. You don't really see that often in pros, but you can see that they might slightly back up on it, or they might extend their wrist conditions a little bit too much this way. If they set up with too much angle in the wrist and then they move it this way, the length of the arc would extend. So the most success I really had is to try to almost, people that struggle have a more like toe down method with a little straighter arm and maintain the height and the pivot through the shot to really control the length or the depth of the arc.
Mm-hmm.
There's many ways I kind of do it, but I start to figure out, can they control the length of the arc and where is the low point? And then if they can start hitting it solid there, then you start figuring out, okay, what shots can you and what shots can you not hit?
What's your idea building on that? Because I think that's excellent. Like, what is your idea on the proper sequencing in short game shots? Because that's been a big teaching debate. I'm not going to mention names, but like in both sides, I know where I'm at, but I mean, what do you think about that piece of short game?
I've seen players being successful with both, which are very much pivot and like less arms. And then I've seen players that are more arms and less pivot being very successful. I kind of try to figure out who this player is, right? If they tend to just be very, very rotational and they don't really like to swing more with the arms or not. I think you should have more pivot than less, but the arms need to be kind of in front of you. I don't like to leave the arms back and just kind of rotate. So it's a nice blend there. The arms needs to be down a little bit before the pivot starts, in my opinion. But players are different. I'm not teaching really a method. It's like, what do you do good and what works for you? Luke says he's very, very much just pivot and rotate, but he never gets the club late behind him either. It's more like getting it more in front of you, kind of in front of the chest the whole way. It's kind of the sequence I see. Then depending on longer shots, obviously you can have the shaft lag a little bit more behind you because then you need a lower launch and more friction compared to the shots around the greens where you might just use the arms more.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm somewhere in between. And whatever works for you, and I can kind of try to figure out something in between there. What do you think?
I think it's definitely very similar to full swing. The only difference is the pelvis and the thorax stay closer together in early transition as opposed to like there's not a lot of separation. But the thorax definitely leads the transition. Kind of goes thorax, lead arm, hands, club. What I see most, I mean, I teach a lot of chops, but I mean, I'm teaching tour players as well. It's the same thing, right? So like, I just started working 4 or 5 months ago with Wilmer Gert on the PGA Tour. I always pick his brains. He's been out there for 13 years. I'm like, who do you think is the best wedge player? And he brought up Luke Donald. And he said, the guy hit the sickest bunker shots he's ever seen. You know, he's just telling stories. So it's always cool to hear what the tour players think they're doing. A lot of times they don't know. They just do it, right? I mean, they're just talented, but I definitely would prefer the pivot to lead the arms. And then the trail arm, in my opinion, is a really, really big deal in controlling the arc height.
Yeah, you don't push too much.
Exactly, right. So if the trail arm starts to straighten too early, now you're changing the arc height. Now you're going to change the pivot and you're going to change the tilts. It's just massive, especially when you're working with better players, is like teaching them that sequence and what it feels like. Yeah, I'm not talking about getting the club stuck behind me at all, but I definitely think you need to be delivering the club sweet spot from inside the hand path, not outside the hand path, right? I mean, that can cause some trouble there. So it's a mini swing-ish, but I definitely don't believe in the reverse sequencing like some people out there are talking about.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. But it also depends on what shot you want to hit, right? So if you have a high shot where you have to like you're short-sighted, you obviously would be completely different. It would be kind of a cut across motion and to get the ball to pop off more. Maybe, yeah. Or you can go really low hands and go around it. John loves that. He never wants the pad to go left. He wants lower hands, inside kind of hook motion, which is fine. But I tested Luke and he swings way left. I was like, am I going to tell him like, you shouldn't do that?
Yeah, I think you got to figure out, is the handle going left or is the club head really going left? I doubt that his path is really going that far left. Like, I'm really big on the handle going left and up, and then the club head goes down and out to the ball. Probably more neutral than you probably realize. It's funny that you bring that up because John mentioned in his notes, he started putting these flop shots on Instagram and it pissed me off because it wasn't good for his pattern.
No,
that he was working on.
He tells me that. It's like, why are you working on that? It's like, man, it was like one shot I have to show off. I'm not practicing.
Yeah, exactly.
But as soon as John gets an opportunity to bitch, he will. It's good. I'll let you know here on this with Luke because we're going to be doing we have all the tests
there.
Yeah. So we'll see exactly what it does. But I'm with you too. Like the majority of the best players have a more of a right path. And it was pretty interesting because I've been messing around with kind of weight plates, or we have got these little cheaper insoles in your shoes called Salty Golf, I think.
Yeah.
All the players I've tested, the weight when you hit pitch shots and chips, like it's all from middle of the foot out to the lead foot. It goes out to the toes more. So it obviously helps influence a path that goes a little bit more right. So you never really see the weight on chips and pitch shots go back to the left heel as much. So I think that's something that good players do, which I honestly don't really know. I've only tested me and a couple, and I've seen it with all of them. So it's probably some smart people out there I can ask, or I just continue to test and see if that's actually what happens.
Yeah, it's something that actually I've tested with better players, and then I actually put James Ridyard on the body track, and he was more in the left heel through impact with the club kind of moving out to the ball.
Even on pitch shots?
Absolutely, yeah. You got to think of biomechanically, this is my secret, I can't believe I'm giving this to you, but you can steal it. Biomechanically, it's very difficult for the body to rotate if you move into your toes, just like any other amateur golfer, right?
Of course, yeah.
If they're over the top or whatever, they're going to move into their toes and they're going to launch, right? And they go vertical, but we really don't want a lot of verticals in pitching, right? So if you get them to actually move more into their lead heel, they can rotate much easier. And it also keeps the sweet spot under better management as well. So that's what I've noticed with all of that. I did a big study with pitching on body track, and that's kind of one of the main things, the commonalities that I saw with better players was, as opposed to like amateur golfers that were kind of moving out to their toes and having trouble with sequencing, was they were actually moving more into the lead heel and they could rotate a little easier. The body moved a little bit smoother, for what it's worth.
We're messing around here with, I got Richard Lee coming too. I want to see exactly. I don't need to ask you the questions then, because I was like, okay, so if I move out there, does a path go there? Maybe my insoles are not good enough for that too. So we'll see. I'm very interested in hearing that because obviously in full pitch shots or swings, I saw it definitely.
It might change the path, but it's also going to change the sequence, because the way I teach pitching is like I'm more interested in like how the body's moving, how the pivot is moving. So that's one thing that's a staple in my short game coaching. And James didn't even know, because he's like, I don't know, I've never tested it. I just know what I do. And he's pretty good around the greens. I said, well, let's throw you on the mat. So we're doing a certification. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's kind of exactly what I've been seeing with the better players versus my higher handicappers, the difference. And he's like, okay, I'll buy that.
James is brilliant.
There's a lot of ways to do it.
More into that for sure. But James is great. Now he's posting a lot of his stuff on social too. So anyone can go and look at his. He started a YouTube channel, got a great Instagram. So I learned a lot from James, just kind of paying attention to what he's saying. And now I learned something from you too. So I'm going to definitely look more into that.
I learned a lot from James as well. Yeah, it's like I've spent the most time with him probably as far as the short game guys. And so like you said, our influences are, I didn't make any of it up. I'm testing it and figuring out patterns that work and don't work. But I mean, still, it's guys that are working with the best players, and you're getting to that stature as well. Like, you better know what's the ins and outs of what the different tools, right, in the toolbox that work for sure.
No doubt.
So talk to me about bunker play. Like, tell me how you teach bunkers. What are your different patterns, or just start with your basics. If you had an average golfer in the bunker, what are you going to tell them? And then how do you work with your tour players?
In the bunker, I definitely believe setup is massive. So what I see a lot is people that set up with too much tilt in their shoulders. I want to see a more level shoulder tilt. And then I want to see a slight more, obviously a little bit wider, a little bit lower handle, and then no shift in the backswing. So it's a very rotational. Most of the good players I teach have a fairly narrow arc with a lot of wrist roll in the backswing to open up the club face and expose the bounce. But the first thing I do with amateurs is I put a line in the sand, smack, and I say, kind of get them in the right setup, ball position up, hands above it, or even sometimes slightly behind it. And I try to, don't move away with the head too much off this line and see if you can control where that club bottoms out. 9 times out of 10, they have no chance. They will bottom out too early 90% of the time, and then most of them kind of lean back too much in the follow through, almost try to help it up in the air. And it takes a long time before you can teach them to stay left. And then you also have to teach them to really release the handle so they don't drag the club across to the left. So try to hit like a high draw with a lot of release and then control where that club enters the sand is huge. But yeah, a lot of setup adjustments. And then it's the same thing there with the depth of the arc. You don't go too much underneath the golf ball. But yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah, I like that. Because most people, I think the misconceptions out there, play the ball way forward, swing across it. You see the tour players are going to stand more open, but they're not swinging that far left, right? It's like, I would minimize that to all right, you got people that are swinging too far left anyway. Then they're like, I'm going to swing more across it. And it gets out of hand and they can't even find the bottom of the swing.
For amateurs, the best thing is to either put a ball right left to the ball or something, and I say, whatever you've heard, you shouldn't be open to the target. I almost like them more close in the beginning. What has really worked for me is to tell them to focus on where they're shooting the sand. I want you to shoot the sand to the pin, not left over there, right? So try to shoot the sand towards the pin without leaning too much of it, because first they say shoot the sand to the pin and shaft lean and to get all the sand to go. So it's like, can you shoot sand towards the pin and up a little bit more? They're normally in a good spot. And then obviously with better players, if they need to hit it really high, you either lower the handle or you can swing slightly left with the open face. But for 90% of all amateurs, you don't even have to open up the face that much to get it more neutral and swing around the body instead of chopping woods, right? That's a good start.
Yeah, I think a lot of the low point control comes from that lead wrist extending too early for an amateur golfer, right? I mean, they see the good players are like, his left wrist is bending. Absolutely, but they know how to hit the ground in the right place under the ball. I don't know. I couldn't tell you the last time I saw an amateur that leaned the shaft too much. I don't know. Yeah. I know you're not teaching a lot of chops like me, but they're trying to throw the bounce at it already, and the handle's behind their right leg, and they're wondering why they can't hit into the ball. So it's like, get them forward, get the club moving forward, and like you said, throw the sand in the right direction, because I haven't put a TrackMan in the bunker. I don't know why I haven't done it. I talk about it all the time, but I guarantee the face and path relationship is much different because we're not actually contacting the ball, right? The path direction or the swing direction is going to be more influential, I think, in the sand, which is why you don't want to swing across the ball, because then you start pulling it.
I agree with that. Definitely.
Yeah, just throw the sand where you want the ball to go. So talk to me about putting. You're working with Capco. You got a lab in your house, it sounds like there, which I'm kind of jealous about. So talk to me what you've learned about putting. What are you teaching, or anything that kind of comes to mind? Yeah, so it's some bonus being an Instagram boyfriend. Hannah has got a really big following, and she got in contact with Putt View. So we got a Putt View in our 2-bedroom apartment. Half the living room is just a putting green. That's sick.
It's unreal. And I've always been in a good relationship with Capto, who is a putting sensor. It's not as advanced, obviously, as Sam Putting Lab, but it's portable. It's great for me, and I've learned a lot. I'm not half as confident in putting as I am with the short game yet, but that guy that's kind of my mentor right now is a guy named Jon Carlson. He has a PhD in putting, by the way, sports science, but his work was in putting. So this guy has done all the research in the world. He's not a massive fan of just focusing purely on the data. He has developed a bunch of different performance drills. So pretty much if you have a gate, can you hit 10 out of 10 through the gate? And I don't really care what the stroke looks like as long as you put a decent roll on the golf ball, right? So you present the right amount of loft at impact. So I'm definitely learned that acceleration is huge, and what loft you present at impact, they kind of related, right? So how can you return the club with the right amount of loft at impact to get a really good roll is something I focus on with really good players. If their start line is under control. And then another thing that June has helped me with is to understand that aim is very important. If you look at big putting coaches now, you look at Phil Kenyon and some of the other guys, all the time looking at aim. You can look up videos of some of the players that Phil Kenyon works with or June Carlson. They always check aim. So they have an aim test. And obviously, if you're only looking at capture data without knowing where they aim and they open up the club face 2 degrees on a consistent basis, most likely, if you're a good putter, you're aiming 2 degrees left, right? Do you want to change that if it's consistent? Maybe not. But from really players that struggle, I've seen a big aim bias either left or right. And then from there, you can kind of figure out how to control the club face better. My dad aims 10 degrees left. I'm not kidding you. It's the worst I've ever seen. And obviously, 10 degrees left is going to open the face like crazy. And then right now, I'm also looking into different designs of putter heads and how they can help someone aim better. So the different designs, Dell has done it for a long time, right? The putting fittings are based on aim.
Right. Yeah, I know all that data is very helpful.
It's pretty cool, right? Right now, I've been messing around just with the putters I have, and I have a lot of putters. I'm actually gaming a lab putter now, the ugliest putter on the planet. But I aim it great, and I've been putting fantastic with it. I don't know, with my limited knowledge about putting, it's not limited, but it's not as good. For me, it seems that aim is important. I've seen some of the best coaches really focus on it. It's helped me a lot. So I definitely think it's something that's significant. I mentioned to you earlier, I've also learned from Jeff Magnum, who's a character out there. He gave me a lot of shit on Facebook for some posts the other day. It's okay. It's his type of feedback, but he had a lot to say and then how the body learns. So instead of getting mad, I tried to kind of figure out what he's trying to say. And he has a theory of how people learn. You can learn something from everyone as soon as you don't get butthurt or upset. So I'm going to try to learn some from him, but that's kind of where I am. So I know, obviously, club face angular impact is huge. How much do you want to change if it's consistent and you're hitting your start lines? Does it really matter? So like you say, if all the time a degree open with the face, but if the aim is left, then you probably don't mess with it too much. So that's kind of where I am right now.
What's your process of green reading as a player?
So I actually got to know, what's his name? The aim point.
Mark Sweeney. Yeah, I'm an aim point guy, so yeah.
There you go, yeah.
That's why I was curious.
Mark Sweeney, before even they had an express read. So when you had the book and everything, he came to a coach that I worked with when I was a junior, Javier Nygård in Sweden. He invited him to Sweden.
Yep, I know who that is.
Oh, there you go, yeah. So I got to learn it then, and I've always paid attention, and I've been around a lot of coaches, so I definitely feel slope. I'd use some of the express reading. I definitely feel like using more than just your eyes is very important for a lot of people, and especially players that struggle. They give you that little bit of extra confidence on where your aim line should be or start line should be based on feeling slope. So that's huge. I know some of the players that I work with or that have been around and practice with also use aim point and it's been successful. So aim point is great. I mean, it's not for everyone, but it should be, I think. If you learn it and then you make your own decision, but
100%.
It's more of a calculated guess.
I mean, I work with a lot of pros on putting and I don't force it on them, but I say, hey, here's the information, right? Let's figure out how you process the picture the best, to make you most successful. So even if you use a portion of it, but I think it doesn't hurt to get the information. It's so simple. The express read is crazy simple compared to what we used to teach with the book and the chart, which was pretty complicated.
Yeah, I tried to learn that, but I also had Scott Stallings down at our course in Phoenix. We spent a whole day, one of the nicest guys. Literally, he wanted some of the short game gain stuff, and I brought him to it at TPC. And we talked a little bit about short game, and he literally come to me to the chipping green. And he spent 3 hours with me just talking about chipping. And then he was like, what do you do tomorrow? I was like, why don't you come to, we're members at Whirlwind, which has a way better practice facility than TPC on the back of the range. So he came there with another friend of mine, Richard Lee, who used to be on the PGA Tour. I have to do this to you, Richard. If you ever seen the video with someone whiff it with the putter on the 17th hole, and you've seen him miss the ball twice, that was my boy Richard.
Okay.
It's funny because his short game is ridiculous. He told Scott, and he told me the story. He came in after he whiffed it on hole number 17 there a couple of times. He came in to Scott, and he told Scott, Stallings, Scott, I'm going to be famous. And he's like, wow, did you make a hole in one or something? He's like, no, I missed the ball twice. But anyway, Scott came to Phoenix. We practiced, and he also explained how much aim point has helped him with his putting.
Yeah.
So it's cool to hear from him because, you know, he's not very well known for his putting, but this year he's been putting great and he's been knocking on the door almost every week, made it to the Tour Championship. So that guy has turned a big corner with his putting, and he credits Aim Point for a lot of it.
Yeah, great guy. He's been on the podcast. If you go back and listen to his episode, he's awesome. My son played at Tennessee Tech, so he's Tennessee Tech alum and been great to my son and also so many other junior golfers out there. So big shout out to Scott. We're always rooting for him every week. So is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to discuss? I mean, I think we've kind of covered a lot of bases here. We could get into some personal development ideas as well. Anything come to mind?
Most of the people in the industry that kind of ask me for advice and so on, it's mainly through social media, right? So like, what did you do in social media to build a following? What do you believe is important? And I think in the end, if you're an instructor, a little part of what you do, and I've always told this to John, right, is that you're a sales representative for yourself. I know that John is one of the best coaches in the world. A lot of people in the industry know that John is fantastic. My guy in Atlanta didn't even know who he was. It's okay to put yourself out there. A lot of people are kind of a little bit nervous of like, oh, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. I don't want to sound silly out there. But in the end, you're sharing information that I've benefited tremendously from. And if you share more as a coach, people are going to be interested, and people come to you. A lot of people come to you, I bet, for what you're sharing and showcasing on social. So I think
Absolutely.
Social media is nowadays is almost a must if you want to be really recognizable. And I think it's a very cool way for a lot of coaches also to improve as a coach or develop. You just taught me something where I might be a little bit off with the weight transferring, pitching and chipping. And without getting to know people like yourself through social media or listening to your stuff, I might be going down the wrong road there, or I might be finding something else in my testing. So it's a really cool opportunity to be on social media, learn from people and connect. I would have probably not get to know you if it wasn't for social. So social is very good. Take it for what it is, and it's a source for information for everyone. You can share it if you want to, or you can listen if you want.
I think that's fantastic advice. Actually, one of the questions was about social and how you built your business and your brand. Like, everybody is their own brand. So it's like nowadays, everybody has both sides of it. Like, I don't have time for it. I mean, you got to make time for it, right? I mean, if you want to be successful, like you said, it's all about eyeballs. Gary Vee talks about getting eyeballs on your product or you as a brand. And I think it's really, really important.
And it's good now too, because before it was kind of frowned upon. It was like, what are you doing? And now people are like, even John doing it.
Yeah. He's in front of the camera more nowadays.
There you go. It's cool. It's a powerful tool. And if you're good, why not show it?
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's just another form of sharing. Like you said, I mean, that's why I started the podcast, right? I wanted to help other coaches. I wanted to bring on people like yourself and other knowledgeable coaches and business people that like they can learn from, right? Because I mean, we can't get to everybody. The day of traveling around, and I get a lot of people that come shadow me, and kudos, but it's like, it's expensive, and the internet has brought us all closer together, especially in our business. And my philosophy, or I always talk about a saying from one of my mentors from afar, Jim Rohn, is like, there's no excuse to be stupid. The information is out there. You just got to go get it. There's no excuse to like not have the information if you're really passionate about what you want to do and you want to be good at it. So kudos to you and what you and Hannah are doing. I'm a big follower and I'm a big fan of your guys' work. So I really, really appreciate you coming on. You've got to, before we get to how we get a hold of you, you have to answer one question, right? And you probably know what it is if you've listened to the podcast. So I'm going to change up the question a little bit. So before it was the billboard question, but now in our day and age, it's like, if you had to put out a group text to the world, what would your group text say to the entire world and why?
Oh, wow. You're getting deep on me now. Follow me on social media. Here's my ad. No, I'm just kidding. Oh my God.
Short game gains.
10% discount code for a putting mirror. Probably something to appreciate people that have helped me along the way. I don't know, man. I'm going to have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
I'm going to go with a discount code for short game gains products. I'm going to be self like that.
All right. Tell everybody how they can buy your products, how they can follow you and follow Hannah on Instagram and all your socials and be a part of the tribe.
Yeah. So Instagram is where I'm the most active, and it's at Fredrik Lindblom. And good luck spelling that. Give it a couple of goes, see if I come up.
I'll spell it in the intro, I promise.
And then Hannah's account is Hannah BGG. It's just 2 G's, right?
Explain that one. Why did she go with that? What's the meaning behind that rather than her name?
What's the double G for?
Get her on the camera here. Let me say hello to her.
She says she doesn't have any makeup on.
Oh, come on.
No, she's not. There you go. We want an explanation to why it's Hannah BGG.
First of all, I made this years ago. It's not like I put much thought into it back in the day, but my name is Hannah, my middle name is Beth, so that's Hannah B, and then GG was like the only one that wasn't taken.
Okay. So it's by default.
There you go.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Sorry to pull you in.
So that way we are, and then Short Game Games, any @Short Game Games on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, it's all there, and then shortgamegames.com. And we're going to have a good sales here for everyone for Thanksgiving and all that good stuff. So if you want to get a little better short game for the next upcoming season, spend some time in this off season to work on your putting, because it's really the only thing you can do, right? Instead of banging balls into a net for everyone that does not live in Phoenix, where I live.
Yeah, or Bluffton. Maybe we'll get a special product code. You never know for the show.
There you go.
But always here to support you and keep up the great work, my man. You're doing great. Anything I can do to help you, I'm a phone call or a text or a DM away.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate you both.
What's up, everyone? Guru back here again with a couple of things before you go. First, big thank you to Fredrik for coming on the show and sharing his story and insights on golf and business. That was super fun. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you give him a follow on the gram at Fredrik Lindblom and also on Twitter at F_Lindblom. You can follow me and reach me on Twitter or Instagram at Golf Guru TV. That's Golf Guru TV. Please give me a follow. Thank you very much. Also, check out my website at golfgurutv.net, where you can find videos, articles, and more information on my teaching and coaching. And if you have a question or comment about the show, email the show at golfgurushow@gmail.com, or just hit me up on the DM. I appreciate the DMs and the shares and all the love. Thank you so much. Music was brought to you by Kevin MacLeod and Zach Mullet, and also a big shout out to Joel North for his incredible production on this episode. As I always leave you with, Mr. Rohn, RIP, my man, study, practice, teach, and then pass it on. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time.